Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto mastered the Forbidden Scroll and built a harem with Hinata, Ino, Sakura, Tenten, Anko, Kurenai and Yugao? If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's start. Chapter 3, Team 7's Beginnings. Reality bites with a variety of sizes of teeth. N. Talking, yo. Thinking, stupid fox. Demon talking, grr. Demon thinking, stupid kit. Inner self talking, CHAA. Jutsu, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. N. Konoha, Crow's training grounds deep within the forest of death. The three rookies, plus Crow, were all laying back and resting for a few minutes before they would have to go meet their teams. Say Crow, I thought you couldn't Shunshin. But we all saw you teleport or something similar to it. How'd you do it? Naruto questioned and Crow chuckled lightly to himself. It wasn't Asunshin Naruto nor was it teleportation Naruto. It's something I like to call ninja art, Shunpo flash step. Crow stated, then sat up and stretched his aching arms. In essence Naruto, the only reason I can't use Shunshin is because my chakra can't naturally be forced out of my body any farther than an inch because of a special chakra deficiency I have. Crow stated, and Naruto, Hinata, and Ino all nodded, as all knew about that already. So, I figured that if I found a way to use this to my advantage I might be able to move at much quicker speeds and not need the Shunshin to get around the village quickly. He stated, then chuckled. Truthfully, it's a double-edged sword. When you use it, it expends phenomenal amounts of chakra to maintain it for more than a few seconds, thus people can sense you easily. However, it is useful for evading enemy techniques or a quick escape. Crow explained, and Naruto looked over at Crow and glared. I get that, what I want to know is how you do that weird aerial chakra step thing, and how the hell did you make a blade of rock? Naruto questioned and Crow chuckled once more as Hinata and Ino both listened also. Okay. Simply put Naruto, to use the Shunpo flash step, I had to alter my own jutsu, the chakra shell jutsu, ever so slightly to where, when I move my chakra at a certain angle in my body and to keep in constant contact with me yet outside that 1-inch limit of my body, it has to flow quickly in that direction to keep up. This in turn makes the flash part of the flash step because when light hits the chakra, being emitted from my body, at that point it will create a flash where I had been. And then while in use it could be confused with a something like a low-level version of the Hiraishin no Jutsu. Unfortunately this takes a high-level amount of chakra control, which most genin usually wouldn't have. Crow explained and Naruto nodded his head slowly while Ino and Hinata seemed lost as Crow was much smarter than he would appear from his lechery. Okay. I got nothing. Also, where's the step in the flash step if the flash is caused by chakra reflecting light? Ino said, then questioned of Crow looking at him as Hinata nodded in agreement, causing the older boy to sigh in slight annoyance from the two girls. Each was brilliant in their own field. For Ino it was taijutsu and herbology. For Hinata she was most like him, using chakra enhancing supplementary jutsus and had amazing chakra control. However, neither of them were very good at the basic theories behind chakra or anything else dealing with the mechanics of jutsu. That was all him and Naruto really. In layman's terms, girls, I basically force my chakra to one place, and my body speeds up in order to catch it. Also the step part of my flash step move is because no matter what, in order to move anywhere even with the chakra at the right angle, you'll have to move yourself in the direction you're going with a single step. Crow stated, and Ino made an O with her mouth, now getting the basic concept of the Shunpo flash step, but soon frowned. But there was nothing for you to move yourself from in the air. Hinata observed and Crow nodded his head as he now had all three sets of eyes on him. He sighed and moved his neck around to relieve some of the tension there before he then started his next explanation. That is correct, Hinata, and that is because of the next jutsu that Naruto asked about. The next jutsu I used to stay in the air and kick off of to use the flash step is like using multiple air flips, or as I like to call it, my air hike. Crow said, and the three genin listened to his every word, mostly because what ninja wouldn't want to be able to do multiple jumps into the air. This jutsu takes the applications of making a leaf hover over your hand, tree climbing and water walking, and adds in a bit of the chakra shell jutsu, for good measure. Basically you create a platform of pure condensed chakra in the air with no element, and it can actually use wind resistance to allow you to move off of it with a jump, thereby allowing someone to stay in the air indefinitely if they can manage the amount of chakra in it correctly for that long. Crow explained simply, and Naruto raised a brow as he thought about what his brother had just explained. But how does the thing stay in one place? Wind resistance alone wouldn't allow you to jump off the platform if it's in mid-air, not to mention not attached to anything. Naruto stated knowingly, and Crow nodded his head with his arms under his head. Absolutely correct, Naruto. The air hike is a special platform as the chakra applied to the platform is constantly moving to the currents of the wind beneath your feet, allowing the air to become temporarily semi-solid long enough for a single jump. Continued use can allow you to jump very high in the air or can allow you to stay out of your opponent's field of vision like I did with Hinata. However, this jutsu can also be used as a chakra control exercise, as like water walking you have to adjust the chakra flow, however you have to do so to match the movements of the air currents, thereby making this probably the most difficult chakra control exercise I know of. Crow explained thoughtfully, and Naruto slowly nodded his head in understanding. Ino and Hinata both nodded after a little more thought, and then Hinata looked to Crow with a question in mind. Crow-sensei, what about the blade of rock you used against us at the end of the sparring session? I thought using elemental chakra was hard for you. Hinata questioned, and Crow chuckled lightly to himself. These kids had a lot of potential, but they just didn't have the drive to actually push their thoughts beyond normal or already pre-created jutsus. Well, Hinata, that's only half true. Yes, it is hard for me to use elemental chakra, but only in an attack like Kaden, Great Fireball Jutsu, Suiden, Suikuden no Jutsu, Fuden, Daikamedachi, Raiden, Raikyu, Doden, Doryuden, or Hyoten, Harumuko. Anything that doesn't require me to expel chakra far away from my body is something I am very good at. So no, I can't use genjutsu or long-range ninjutsu, as you all should already know. Crow explained, and they all rolled their eyes. However, I can channel chakra throughout anything I am holding, thus I created the chakra blade no jutsu. Basically it's elemental chakra I hold and can be focused into a blade. However, it works the best with ice, earth and wind if you want the weapon to be stable or able to cut through anything. Waters to fluid, so it doesn't work too well. Fires to hot and causes massive problems when trying to wield it without taking precautions with the heat of the flames, and lightning is just too volatile to try and control in a single blade for too long. Crow explained, and Naruto nodded his head, then had an ear-to-ear grin come to his face. Hey Crow-kun, could you teach us those jutsu? Ino asked sweetly, and Crow, med, and then thought for a few minutes. Just as he was going to answer, however, the alarm went off and the three genin hopefuls jumped up and nearly out of their skin. After all, fighting against Crow to survive was taxing, and they'd forgotten about the time limit. Sorry guys, looks like I'll have to teach you those three jutsu at another day. Until then, have fun with your new teammates. Crow said, then used a flash step to vanish in a silver flash of pure chakra. Naruto and the three other genin hopefuls rolled their eyes and got up. The group then all quickly ran out of the forest and towards the school. However, a certain snake mistress just happened to have watched the little show and subsequent teaching session that the supposedly weakest genin in the village had put on, and couldn't help but smirk. Maybe there was hope for this next generation after all, especially if that was only the tip of the iceberg of what they could really do. Konoha, Ninja Academy. Alright everyone, I'll start assigning your new Junin senseis now. Iruka said as he looked at the 27 genin before him. Naruto and the rest basically tuned out Iruka, waiting for him to announce who their friend's Junin sensei was going to be. Team 6, your Junin sensei will be. Before Iruka could finish, however, a kunai came from the window and a large black banner that said, "Here comes Team 6 Junin sensei, the lovely and single, Anko Mitarashi." On it in bright red bold lettering. She's too early as usually. Iruka thought to himself as he slapped himself in the face with his clipboard, pure annoyance visible on his face. As he did, a woman appeared in the middle of the room, and Naruto was sure he'd seen Crow following this one with a notebook once. Of course he only started doing that after meeting some guy at the hot springs named Jiraiya, who he said was the greatest man ever to live. She was pale, with dark purple hair pulled back into a spiky ponytail like Shikamaru's, only with her bangs covering her Hitai 8, a pair of pupilless brown eyes, a suit of custom-made metallic mesh to cover herself, an orange skirt that had straps to hold it on around her waist, a strange pendant around her neck, a long tan jacket, and black shinobi sandals with a pair of silver shin guards. Alright then maggots. I'm Anko Mitarashi and I'll be Team 6 Junin Sensei. The girl shouted before pumping her fist and Sakura groaned thinking it was the equivalent of a female Naruto. Naruto however blinked and had to stifle laughter as he heard her yell so much and saw what was on the banner. Holy shit, she's a female version of my old, Dobi, personality. Naruto inwardly laughed at this while Iruka meanwhile moved the banner slightly and looked at the woman slightly annoyed. You're too early Anko, he said simply and Anko's face fell and her head slightly tilted as several members of the class started to snicker and Arisa started to bang her head on the table as she saw her new sensei. I haven't even announced you yet. Iruka stated slightly annoyed with the woman, who chuckled nervously. Now then, Team 7's Junin Sensei is Kakashi Hatake, Team 8 has Kurenai Yuhi, Team 9 is carrying on from last year, and Team 10 has Asuma Sarutobi as their sensei. They will all be here shortly so please remain seated until then. Iruka announced and then glared at Anko. Of course Team 6 can leave now. Iruka growled and Anko chuckled nervously then looked around the room for her newest batch of snake food. Alright then, Team 6 front and center. Anko shouted and Kasara, Kairi, and Arisa all filed up before her and Anko blinked seeing them. Holy shit, an all-girl team. She shouted while pointing at them, causing Iruka to slap himself with his notepad eye twitching slightly. Now Naruto he could stand, but Anko was in a whole other league compared to him when it came to annoying someone. Yeah what of it you oversized, female version of Naruto? Arisa asked with an annoyed frown and Anko glared at her, to which Arisa just glared right back at her not backing down from the older kunoichi. Anko then grinned widely as she then started to crack her knuckles menacingly while she looked at the three before her with an evil-looking grin slowly coming to her face. Oh, I'm gonna enjoy this. You three are going to cry and wish you were never born before I'm done with you. Anko said then chuckled darkly and Kasara and Kairi glared at their teammate who shrugged and crossed her arms. Alright move out. Anko shouted and then grabbed Arisa by her coat and started to drag her away. Arisa started to scream indignities and curses towards the Junin while her friends just laughed following her and their new sensei out of the room. The rest of the team's Junin senseis soon came after that. Hinata got a girl Naruto knew Crow had followed with a notebook once. Maybe more times but he didn't know for sure. She had long black hair that was held partially out of her face by her forehead protector, a pair of strange yet alluring red eyes, a figure that any pervert would kill to stare at, and she wore a mesh shirt with red and white wrappings over it made into a dress, a single red sleeve down her right side, wrappings around her lower arms and thighs, and a pair of blue shinobi sandals that left the heel open. Naruto admitted that while Crow may have been the second biggest pervert Konoha had ever seen, but he also had excellent tastes in women. Also, if I ever meet this Jiraiya guy I'm going to punch his lights out for making Crow more perverted, then torture him to find out why Crow would say he was the greatest man ever to live. Naruto silently vowed to himself watching as Hinata left with her sensei, Kurenai. Soon the next Inoshika Chao trio left with their sensei Asuma Sarutobi. It was 2 hours later when all the other teams had left that Naruto became angry. This guy's got some nerve. How can he be a Junin and show up 2 hours late to get his own team? Naruto inwardly demanded and growled outwardly standing up and walking towards the door. He then opened the door and looked around outside before grinning. Naruto you idiot. What do you think you're doing? Sakura demanded of her blonde teammate and Naruto smirked as he crossed his arms. Nothing. He said innocently then grabbed an eraser and a stool, then climbed up a stool to put it over the door so it would fall on their sensei when he entered. Just teaching this guy a lesson about making us wait for him. Naruto shouted with a grin and his true personality snickered darkly with him. He. The jerk deserves this for being so late anyways. Even if he's Kasara-chan's father, that doesn't give him the right to be late. Naruto thought to himself as he carried his stool back over to his seat and sat down. Naruto this is stupid, Sakura said while shaking her head, however a certain inner voice was singing a completely different tune. Cha, I live for this stuff. Sasuke merely rolled his eyes at what he thought was a pitiful attempt at a trap. There's no way a superior ninja could be fooled by such a simple trap, Naruto. Sasuke stated, looking over his laced fingers to the blonde who was rolling his eyes and leaned back with an evil smirk on his face. Hey, that might be true, Sasuke, however a superior ninja is always looking for tripwires and other such ingenious traps. Something as simple as this will get them every time. Naruto thought to himself, wondering why no one ever seemed to notice this. Just as that thought passed by, he felt a presence and watched as a silver-haired man entered, only for the eraser to fall on his head. "Ha, got ya one eye," Naruto called out, laughing at the man. He was taller than any of the genins, with gravity-defying spiky silver hair, pale skin, and only his right black eye visible as his Hitai 8 covers his left eye. He wore a face mask like his daughter and the typical Junin outfit with a green flak jacket and hand protectors. Yep, that's Kasara-chan's father all right. Naruto thought to himself with a grin as he saw the man. "I'm sorry, sensei. I tried to stop Naruto." Sakura apologized while bowing, but once more her inner self was singing a completely different tune. "Ha! Set him up and knock him down. That was great." The inner personality ranted to itself, and Sakura felt an eye twitch as she heard her inner self. Sasuke's sweat dropped as he saw their one-eyed sensei rub his head, and then thought to himself. This guy is supposed to be our elite shinobi instructor. He looks like he's completely worthless. Meanwhile, Kakashi looked over the students but hovered on Naruto for a bit. Isn't that Kasara's friend? Reminds me a bit too much of Obito and Sensei. Maybe I could give him a pointer or two. At least I might if he passes my test, that is. Kakashi thought to himself and looked at Sasuke. The last Uchiha and Obito's cousin, might be a great ninja someday. But I'll have to get to know them all a little more before I'm sure. He then looked at Sakura and mental flashbacks came to mind. A fangirl, no doubt, from the way she looks, more interested in makeup and boys than being a real shinobi. Reminds me of Rin in a way, though she was less so than this girl. Of course that's cause she was an Inuzuka. Single quote. He thought, then looked at them all. Based off of my first impression of all of you all is. Kakashi left a pause and inwardly snickered. I hate you, he states simply, and the three genin hopefuls nearly fall over in shock save Sasuke, who rolls his eyes. Duckhead's probably thinking along the same line as me. Kakashi thought to himself, then I smiled. Meet me up on the roof. And with that he sunshined away into the roof. Well, he seemed nice. Naruto muttered while blinking his eyes rapidly. Oh well, I got nothing better to do. Naruto said and jumped up, walking out the door with his hands behind his head as Sasuke growled and then quickly walked past him and towards the roof with a frown, making Naruto roll his eyes. Man, Sasuke, have to be first in everything or what? Naruto wondered, annoyed, as they reached the roof to see their new sensei leaning back on the rail with an orange book in hand, causing Naruto to point. It's the damn book Crow always reads. He shouted angrily, and Kakashi blinked. That psycho Crow reads Ika Ika Paradise. He's not so bad after all. Kakashi thought to himself while Naruto's eye twitched in annoyance. Are all my senseis going to be pervs or what? Naruto inwardly demanded as Kakashi watched as his other two genin sat down looking at Naruto, who was muttering about perverts, strangely. Kakashi sighed sadly as he was forced to now put his precious smut away and actually learn something about his new team. Naruto was sitting next to Sasuke on the right to Kakashi, while Sakura was on the left, and all three seemed a little anxious. Alright, now I'd like to get to know each of you a little better and tell us about yourself. Kakashi said, and Sakura blinked. Like what, sensei? She questioned, and Kakashi thought to himself about it. Oh, you know, what you like, dislike, your hobbies, dreams, things like that. Kakashi said, and Sakura blinked. Why don't you go first, sensei? After all, you are like a complete stranger to us. Sakura offered, and Kakashi shrugged. Okay, he said, then took a thoughtful look. My name is Kakashi Hatake, father of Kasara Hatake, to those of you who didn't know. I don't feel like talking about my likes and dislikes. My dreams are none of your business. And I have many hobbies. Kakashi said, and Sakura grumbled about only getting his name while Naruto snickered when Kakashi finished. Alright Blondie, now it's your turn. Kakashi said while looking at Naruto, who blinked and then grinned widely. Alright, my name's Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen and my big brother Crow. I dislike morons who take others for granted and people who treat others like they're nothing but weapons. my hobbies are eating ramen, and learning ninja stuff from my big brother Crow. My dream is to someday earn the respect of those around me and fulfill my father's last wish. Naruto said happily, but Kakashi could hear some hint of sadness and anger in his voice. Well now, it seems Crow's more of a positive influence on him than I would have ever thought. But what does he mean fulfill his father's last wish? I thought no one knew who his father was. Let alone him. Kakashi thought to himself while looking at Naruto for a few seconds, then I smiling. Alright, Pinky, your turn. Kakashi said to Sakura, who blinked and frowned but soon let it go while smiling. Once again her inner self was singing a different tune though. Cha, who does he think he is calling me Pinky? I am Sakura Haruno, I like well. It's not really a thing, but a boy. Sakura said, then looked to Sasuke and giggled. I dislike Naruto. My hobbies are. She looked at Sasuke one more and Kakashi felt his eye twitch in annoyance. And my dreams are. She looked at Sasuke once more and squealed, causing Kakashi to inwardly groan. Great. A fangirl, alright. Just what I didn't need. Kakashi thought, inwardly groaning, then turned to the final member of his new team. Alright Duckhead, you're next. Kakashi said to Sasuke, and the brooding Uchiha frowned and glared at him before he spoke. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I like few things, I dislike many things, my hobbies are my own, and my dream is to revive my clan and… No. That's my ambition, to kill a certain man. Sasuke stated, and everyone had different thoughts on this. Sasuke is so cool. Cha, he's smokin' hot, that's for sure. Sakura and inner Sakura thought as they smiled widely at Sasuke. Jesse, he really has issues. I mean, come on, even Crow's not this bad about getting vengeance on the guys who attack me. Then again, when it comes to being a perv, he is this obsessed. Naruto thought to himself and then snickered as he thought of the few hundred times he'd seen Ino punch Crow for his lechery. I got a fangirl, and an avenger. The only one who seems like he'll be halfway decent is Naruto, and from the sound of it Crow taught him some things, so I won't have to focus on the basics with him, hopefully. That leaves most of Pinky and Duckhead's training up to me, unfortunately. Kakashi thought to himself, a hand on his cheek as he looked over his team, then I smiled. Alright, I believe we all know each other well enough, formal training begins tomorrow. Kakashi said, and Naruto pumped his fist. Yes sir. What will our duties be? Naruto asked excitedly, and Kakashi sighed, feeling maybe Naruto had training, but if this was how he acted, then his personality, not to mention his choice of clothing, would possibly be more a danger than an asset. Our first project shall include only the members of this team, Kakashi said to the three, and Naruto inwardly frowned. What is it then, sensei? Sakura asked of their Junin sensei. Survival exercises, Kakashi said factly, and Naruto narrowed his eyes on his sensei with a frown on his face. So, he's going this route again. From what Kasara has told me, her dad always uses survival exercises as a way to fail his teams. This is because of the fact that no one has reached his standards. Crow informed me that the old, survival exercises, is actually a test of teamwork. He said that in Kiri they used the same thing only before the Genin test, and it was so that two possible Genins would become closer, and thus when the final exam came it would be all that much harder to kill them. Naruto thought to himself as he watched his teammates question their instructor. But, Kakashi-sensei, we had survival training all throughout our time at the Ninja Academy. Sakura stated, and Naruto frowned as he heard her complain. Nay, but Sakura, Crony-san takes me out on harder survival exercises than anything that the academy did. Naruto states, and Sakura glares at the blonde. Please Naruto. Your brother may be one of the coolest guys in Konoha, but he's still only a civilian. And I think Iruka-sensei and Mizuki-sensei know a lot more about training and survival than he would. Sakura said, and Naruto growled angrily, glaring at the pink-haired girl. Don't talk about my Ni-san like that, Sakura. He does so know what he's doing when he teaches me. Naruto growled angrily with a wild look in his eyes as the pink-haired girl backed off slightly, and Sasuke frowned slightly. Kakashi blinked. Naruto was the one who never got mad according to Anbu intelligence, however it looked as though his brother was a bit of a sore spot with him. Curious. Now Sakura. Non-shinobis have to survive in the wilderness just like ninjas when they travel, a lot like Naruto's brother used to. In any event, we'll be meeting at Training Ground 7 tomorrow, so I can your skill level. Kakashi stated, and Sakura nodded slowly as Naruto smiled and hid his anger, causing Kakashi to narrow his eye in thought. Naruto's definitely not always happy. He's hiding something behind these smiles, I can tell that much. But it's definitely not a 1,000-year-old demon. What, or maybe, who are you really Naruto Uzumaki? Kakashi thought to himself, then cleared his throat and reached into his vest to pull out some papers. Alright, these will detail your assignment, so don't be late tomorrow, but as a bit of advice, don't eat anything before you come. Kakashi said, and Sakura blinked. Why not, Kakashi-sensei? She questioned, and her Junin-sensei chuckled lightly. You'll throw up, he told her simply, then sunshined away, and the three genins looked at one another before Sasuke got up. Throw up? How hard is this test going to really be? Sakura wondered before looking to her precious Sasuke as he then crumpled his own form up, and Naruto frowned while actually reading it, unlike Sasuke. Sakura however tried to read it but blinked, then let it fly away to follow Sasuke screaming his name. Naruto rolled his eyes once they were gone and put a hand to his chin in thought as he looked over the form now that he was alone. He took the time to catch Sakura's paper, then picked up Sasuke's and studied the paper for a bit. Seems like a standard test from the outside. However, the actual form itself is a bit too heavy, and is giving off a faint chakra signature. That means that it is probably made of special chakra-encoded paper that is usually used for a secret message, meaning that Kakashi-sensei wanted us to actually read these before tomorrow. The message before that details that his survival training will be a 3-on-1 match against him, to bring anything you might think will be needed, what time to show up, and that we shouldn't eat unless we want to throw up. Naruto said to himself, then applied some chakra to the paper, and the letters and sentences began to change. Naruto grinned as the real message was revealed and quickly read through it. From Kakashi Hatake to whomever it may concern. If you are reading this, I applaud you in your deductive skills, a good quality for any shinobi out on the field. Now then, you may have noticed that the survival exercises are more than they might appear. As I am sure, I have told you not to eat or else you'll throw up. However, if you're reading this, then you definitely should eat. But only enough so you will have energy to fight. Also, I will show up 2 hours late, do the same unless you want to be waiting for a while. Next, seeing as I have marked these forms with a special seal below, I want you to place some blood on it, then add some of your chakra to it, and take the scroll and the item from within to use against me tomorrow. If either or both of your teammates have thrown their forms away, collect them and do the same with those. Each form holds a different item and scroll, each with a special jutsu. One has ninjutsu, the next is a low-level genjutsu, and last is taijutsu. These jutsu shall aid you during the test should you take the time to learn them tonight, and sleep won't be necessary if you have the ninjutsu scroll. Do not give them any of the items or share them. These items are basically normal and wouldn't cost much, but they are essential if you want to pass the test tomorrow. Now then, next on the agenda, I want to say how impressed I am that you took the time to notice that this wasn't normal paper. You'll be needing those same observational skills in the morning, so stay sharp. Your Junin sensei Kakashi Hatake. Not bad, Kakashi sensei. If the paper wasn't too heavy to be normal, I might not have noticed that. Naruto said to himself, then bit his thumb and spread his blood over the seal on his paper. He then placed some chakra into it and grinned as a small note in what looked like a bag of pills appeared next to a scroll. Alright, let's see what's first. Naruto thought to himself as he picked the note up and read it. Soldier pills, developed by the military for use on the main field. It doubles a person's chakra capacity and output, allowing for stronger jutsu uses and higher stamina. It allows a person to go non-stop for 3 days and night. However, prolonged use leads to paranoia and near total exhaustion. Naruto blinked and then grinned as he looked at the bag in hand and then opened it up. Only 4 figures. He wouldn't want me to have too many after all, that would make it a bit too easy. Quote. Naruto said as he then put the bag inside his pocket along with the note. He then unraveled the scroll and read what jutsu it was. Maisai Gakur no Jutsu, he said to himself, and quickly read the description. An A-rank jutsu that allows the user to become temporarily invisible to the enemy. However, prolonged use is not recommended as it tends to lead to chakra exhaustion quickly. Naruto read and nodded his head slowly. Basically, the items in this scroll is to sneak up on the enemy, in this case Kakashi sensei. Naruto said to himself, then looked between Sakura and Sasuke's forms and sighed, taking Sakura's first. He once more spread his blood and applied chakra to the seal and watched as an item and a scroll appeared. A simple box of matches. Naruto questioned with a raised brow and snickered evilly. Ah, I get it. Then this must be the genjutsu. Damn, I'm no good at genjutsu. Naruto shouted and started to rub his head in annoyance as he then put the matches in one of his pockets and looked at Sasuke's crumbled up form. Well, I guess this one is taijutsu. He said to himself, then once more unsealed the item and scroll. A pair of gauntlets. He questioned with a raised brow and looked them over with a critical eye. They weren't in the best condition, no, these were pretty old and looked slightly rusty. However, they did seem able to continue working and still had spikes on the knuckles, metal along it with leather around the underside where the forearms would be, and had a hidden knife on the sides that would fold outward for easily hiding them from enemies. Not bad. All things considered, Crow should be able to clean these up, and get them back into workable order by tomorrow. Naruto thought to himself and extended the blades from the sides of the old gauntlets and cringed at the rusted and undercared metal that looked duller than his personality's brain. Oh boy, Crow's also going to have to show me how to manage and maintain these. Naruto said to himself as he fingered the rusted metal carefully. Now then, what's the technique here, I wonder? Naruto wondered and opened the taijutsu scroll. Senin Garashi. He questioned with a raised brow and looked over the attack description. Basically a mega-ass poke. However, when used with a kunai or other sharp object, it could do some serious damage. Naruto thought to himself, then grinned widely. Like the spiked knuckles on these old gauntlets. He said with triumph, and then got up with the gauntlets and scrolls in hand. He then jumped off the roof into the next one, running quickly home so he could master a few new jutsu for his first mission as a member of Team 7. The next day, Naruto walked towards the destination of their survival training with a huge grin on his face as he wore the now polished and shiny gauntlets, displaying the leaf symbols on the hands proudly. It had been one wild night last night, between Crow teaching him the camouflage concealment technique in 1000 Years of Death. He didn't even have time to learn the genjutsu, and while Naruto was sleeping then eating, Crow had finished fixing up the ancient gauntlets from Kakashi to look as good as new. Naruto. Sakura screeched as he arrived, then blinked. Sasuke was sitting down in front of a tree and Sakura was glaring at him from beside the Uchiha. How can you be 2 hours late? She demanded, glaring at him with Sasuke looking just as, if not more, annoyed. Naruto then grinned nervously as he rubbed the back of his neck slowly. Forgot what time we were supposed to come here, he stated, and Sakura growled before running forward to punch him. Naruto smirked as he then decided to allow her to hit him once. After all, she wasn't that strong anyways. With a resounding punch to the cheek, Naruto decided he'd have to rethink that last thought as his jaw was now throbbing. What the hell? Does she only seem strong when hitting me, or is it just that she likes hitting me that hard? Naruto wondered to himself, grimacing from the ground, and stared up to see Sakura still glaring at him with her hands on her hips. Naruto, you idiot. Kakashi-sensei said we had to be on time. Sakura shouted angrily, and Naruto rolled his eyes as he got back up, now nursing his now throbbing jaw. Naruto then looked to see Sasuke was eyeing his new gauntlets and inwardly smirked. What's with you, Sasuke? Never seen gauntlets before? Naruto questioned, and Sakura blinked, only just noticing the shiny metal of his new, used gauntlets. Yes, I have, Dobi. Just wondering where you got them. Sasuke stated, and Naruto took a thoughtful look inwardly, wondering why Sasuke was a ninja if he couldn't sense the amount of chakra in those forms. I found them, was all Naruto said, shrugging his shoulders, and Sasuke grunted and turned to see Kakashi walking up to them. Yo, he said with a raised hand, and Sakura pointed at him and yelled out. You're late. Naruto frowned at this and glared at their sensei. I get hit in the jaw, and he gets yelled at. Yeah, that's real fair. Naruto thought to himself, annoyed with the situation thus far. Kakashi blinked, making it seem as though he was listening when in actuality he was looking at them to determine if they figured out the notes. He saw the gauntlets on Naruto's arms and inwardly smirked. Alright, I've set this alarm to go off at noon. Kakashi said, taking a clock out of his vest and placing it on a nearby stump. Now then, your mission for today is to acquire these 2 small bells from me. Kakashi said, showing the 3 a pair of small silver bells. But, you have to get them from me before the timer goes off in 30 minutes. And, anyone who doesn't get a bell before then, doesn't get lunch and gets tied to the middle stump over there. Kakashi said, and the three genin all gawked at him with the same thought going through their heads. So that's why you wanted us to go without breakfast. All you need, is one bell apiece. Unfortunately one of you is bound for the stump. One is bound to be sent back to school in disgrace. The question is who? Kakashi said, then questioned, looking around, and the three all looked among themselves. You've gotta be shitting me. Naruto exclaimed, summing up the vast majority of the thoughts through the other genins' minds. I shit you not. Kakashi said humorously with an eye smile visible to them. Let's see if they can figure out my little test or not. Kakashi said while looking at the three genin before him. You may of course, use shuriken or any other weapon on hand. Attack as through you mean to kill me or you will surely fail. Kakashi said simply with a lazy look to his one visible eye. But, if we do that could seriously hurt you. Sakura exclaimed, and Kakashi shrugged his shoulders but paid special attention to the calculating look in Naruto's eyes. He was disguising it well, appearing to be staring off into space, but Kakashi wasn't a Junin and a former Anbu captain for nothing. Alright, now, let's begin. Kakashi said as then Sasuke and Sakura swiftly ran to hide themselves, leaving Naruto there to stand before Kakashi. So deciding to take the more direct approach. Naruto? Kakashi questioned as Naruto then crouched and rushed forward. Kakashi then reached into his back pouch and Naruto blinked while running forward. I have to be ready in case he pulls out a kunai or shuriken. What the hell? Naruto exclaimed in his head and falling down as Kakashi pulled out his little orange book. Is something wrong? I thought you were coming for me. Kakashi said, and Naruto growled, flipping back to his feet and glaring at him, a small smudge of dirt on his chin. You're reading that smut at a time like this? Naruto exclaimed while glaring at Kakashi, who then looked to his book while telling him simply. Of course. I've been dying to find out how the story ends after all. He stated, and Naruto started to growl, his eye twitching rapidly. Now, many would ask why Naruto could act so calm when being attacked by Mizuki and not by Kakashi reading that smut. The answer is actually quite simple, he really doesn't like that little book. Mostly cause of the fact that his brother's always reading the damn thing in order to ignore him. So by seeing Kakashi do basically the same thing, it really set him off. I'm gonna flatten you, you pervert. Naruto shouted, rolling up the sleeves of his coat and running at Kakashi, throwing his fist at him. The Junin then lazily caught the fist with one hand and Naruto brought his leg up to slam him down. But the older nin simply ducked down, still reading his smut, as Naruto landed and then ran at him once more. I'm gonna shred that damn book to pieces. Naruto shouted and then touched a button on each of the gauntlets at the wrist. In a second the blades from the gauntlets extended with a SHNK sound. Kakashi's highly trained ears picked up the sound and he looked over only to see Naruto try and take his head off. Obviously Crow fixed those old gauntlets back into pristine condition. Might as well let Naruto keep them if they both went to all that trouble. Although I really need to teach him how to fight with them better. Kakashi mused as he then jumped up as Naruto spun with the blades. Kakashi then landed behind Naruto and inwardly grinned. A good shinobi never shows his back to the enemy, Naruto. Kakashi said with an eye smile, his hands making the seal of the tiger. Naruto, get out of there. You'll be killed. Sakura shouted and Naruto growled. Stupid. That girl really needs to learn not to give away her position like that. Naruto thought as he looked over his shoulder to see Kakashi's position and his eyes widened. Wait, that's not a fire technique. That's... Naruto inwardly smirked as then Kakashi lunged forward with a manic look in his one eye, not seeing Naruto make a hand seal also. Konohagakure number Sato's most secret and most sacred technique. Senin Garashi. Kakashi said, putting his fingers to Naruto's butt and sending him flying. However, as it flew into the air it turned into a plume of smoke and Kakashi's eyes widened. Shadow clone. And a replacement jutsu. He's using both at the same time. Not bad for a dobi, if I do say so myself. Kakashi thought to himself. Hey Kakashi-sensei. I think you missed me. Naruto shouted, appearing behind Kakashi, whose one eye widened as he noticed the ninjutsu. Maisai Gakure no Jutsu too. He must have gotten all but the genjutsu then. Incredible. He's mastered AD and A-rank jutsu in only one night. Impressive Naruto. Kakashi thought to himself as then Naruto made the same hand seal as Kakashi. Now for a taste of your own medicine. Senin Garashi. Naruto shouted while pulling his fingers together and using the spikes on the knuckles of his conjoined hands to hit Kakashi in his blind spot, sending the older nin flying only to disappear in a plume of smoke. Meanwhile Sakura and Sasuke were both watching, slightly amazed at what Naruto was doing. The Dobi actually made a plan. He used the art of misdirection rather than truly barreling in headfirst. He sent in a clone instead of himself and then attacked from behind. Single quote. Sasuke thought to himself with a smirk, then narrowed his eyes. However, I want to know where he learned those techniques. Kakashi-sensei only just showed that stupid butt poke thing, but that invisibility jutsu could be useful in my quest. Sasuke thought, glaring at Naruto, who blinked then started to look around for Kakashi, who had managed to disappear from Naruto's vision. Aw shit. Even with the Maisai Gakur no Jutsu that Kakashi-sensei left, I should have known he wouldn't be foolish enough to fall for it. Then even with that Senin Garashi thing, he predicted it and used a clone to fool me. This is bad. Kakashi has me on the ropes and can attack from any direction he wants now. Naruto thought to himself as then several shuriken came down near him and he brought his gauntlets up to block the attack. Not bad, Naruto, Kakashi said, sitting lazily in a tree still reading his book. The blonde Jinchuriki glared at his sensei from behind the steel of his gauntlets. But not quick enough, Kakashi stated, and Naruto frowned. By now you must have run out of steam after all, Kakashi stated, and Naruto smirked. Maybe, but I know how to get it back, Naruto stated, and pulled out the bag of soldier pills and found only 3 left, seeing as he ate one last night so he wouldn't need much sleep. Okay, I've only got 3 of these left and Kakashi-sensei is still at least 75% capacity. Even with these I can't show him my more powerful jutsu, or he and every other shinobi in the village will figure out I've been deceiving them. I need a way to fight him without running the risk of giving out my secret. But I'm only one person, I can't fight someone like Kakashi-sensei without my full skills. I mean, even when I'm fighting Crow I always had Ino and Hinata too. Oh, of course. Why didn't I think of that before? Naruto suddenly exclaimed in his head and smirked as he jumped back and into the trees, leaving Kakashi in the clearing. Did he figure it out already? Maybe he's not a dobi. Maybe he just wants everyone to underestimate him. Sneaky, cunning, underhanded, totally ninja, Kakashi thought with an inward smirk as Naruto looked around the trees for a short while, forgetting about Kakashi, and spotted Sakura on the ground and jumped to her. Sakura, we need to work together. I can't take on Kakashi-sensei on my own. I need you to figure out this genjutsu, and to eat one of these, Naruto said, pulling out the genjutsu scroll from his jacket and holding it in a soldier pill out to her. Wah, but we're supposed to be trying to get the bells, Sakura said, and Naruto grinned. If we can get something besides those bells from Kakashi, I'm sure we can have all 3 of us pass, Naruto said, and Sakura raised a brow, confused. Come on Sakura, he's had that books practically glued to his face, we take that and we got him in the palm of our hands, Naruto told her, and Sakura blinked. Did Naruto just make a sensible plan? Alright, but what's the pill for? Sakura said, taking the 2 items, and had a questioning look on her face. It's called a soldier pill. It'll fill your reserves and let you forget your hunger for a period of time, Naruto said, and Sakura grinned and downed the pill quickly before her eyes lit up and she shivered. Whoa, you weren't kidding, she said somewhat loudly, and Naruto looked around and sighed when he didn't see Kakashi anywhere at the moment. Where the hell did Kakashi-sensei go? Naruto questioned, looking around and only seeing a log with several kunai lodged into it. A minute ago, Sasuke was watching Kakashi like a hawk for him to give even the slightest drop to his guard. Naruto managed to catch him slightly off guard with that freaky poke, but that wouldn't be effective enough to disable Kakashi. Single quote. Sasuke mused and then saw Kakashi look over to the side when someone shouted something. Now, Sasuke inwardly roared and threw several kunai towards the Junin. I've got M, Sasuke thought to himself, but his eyes widened as the kunai hit Kakashi only for him to turn into a log. What no? He used the Kawarimi no Jutsu again. And I just fell for it and gave away my position like an amateur. Sasuke inwardly chided himself, then jumped off, not seeing the single eye watching him from the shadows. Brash and impetuous. He's a little rough around the edges. But with a little work he and Naruto both could make excellent shinobi. Kakashi thought to himself as he then saw Naruto looking around while sitting with Sakura and raised a brow. Now what are they up to, I wonder? Kakashi asked himself as then Naruto vanished after using a couple of seals and he smirked. So he did learn the Meisai Gakur no Jutsu, after all. Not bad, Naruto. Not bad at all. Kakashi thought to himself, then shunshined behind Sakura who was reading a scroll. Sakura, behind you, Kakashi said, and Sakura blinked before turning to see her sensei there. He quickly did several hand seals and inwardly smirked. Megan, Narukumi no Jutsu, Kakashi said quickly, and Sakura's eyes fogged over as she looked at his one eye. As she looked forward she saw leaves start to surround her, spiraling into the air and blocking her view of Kakashi until they died down and he was gone from sight. What was that? Where'd Kakashi-sensei go? She questioned quickly, looking around the area. Sakura. The girl heard the voice and turned around smiling. Sasuke. She called out only to stop as she saw the boy she had a crush on. Saku. Help. Me. Sasuke said, multiple kunai and shuriken strewn throughout his body as Sakura looked on horrified until she remembered the last thing she heard Kakashi say. Wait a minute, that was the same name of the genjutsu that Naruto wanted me to learn from that scroll. And if it's the same illusion I should be able to break it. I hope. Sakura thought, inwardly cheering for figuring it out, and formed a seal with her hands. Kai. She called out and the illusion disappeared, causing her to sigh in relief. Naruto. I don't know if you knew what that jutsu was, but thanks. If I hadn't known there was a technique like that I might have actually fell for it. Sakura thought to herself, then patted her stomach. Not to mention, if I was hungry I'd have never thought to notice. She thought, not seeing Kakashi above her, his book still out, with a small smile behind his mask as he saw the girl get through his challenge. Naruto must have shared one of his soldier pills with her as well as the scroll for that genjutsu. Then that means he's also going to give one to Sasuke and have one left for himself, if I'm right about him eating one last night rather than sleep. Excellent work, Naruto. You're proving your former teacher's Sans Iruka wrong. Naruto. Kakashi thought, then looked out in the clearing to see Sasuke standing with his arms crossed, looking direct at him from below. You'll make a fine shinobi. He thought to himself and jumped down towards the young man. So, just you and me now, Kakashi said, and Sasuke glared at the older nin. I'm not going to beat him as easily as you did, Sakura. Sasuke said, and Kakashi smirked. He probably thinks I caught Sakura in an illusion just now from my statement. However, he's so hungry he doesn't realize that I mean he's the only one in the area. Naruto must not have found him in time. Too bad. Kakashi thought to himself, then crossed his arms slightly, still reading. Save you boasts until you've got a bell. Duck head. Kakashi said, causing Sasuke to glare at him heatedly. I'm going to show you the true strength of the Uchiha clan. The most elite family in all of Konohagakure no Sato. Sasuke said, and Kakashi finally put his book away and then told the dark-eyed boy with an eye smile. I look forward to it. No matter how annoying or anal, this kid's still an Uchiha. I can't leave my guard as open as I have up until now. I shouldn't have left it so low while fighting Naruto, but I needed to his level of skills. Kakashi thought as then Sasuke threw several throwing knives at him and he flipped out of the way of them. One of which then cut a nearby somewhat concealed rope, and Kakashi's eye widened. A trap, he questioned quickly and dodged out of the way only for Sasuke to appear behind him. Sasuke then kicked at Kakashi, but the older nin caught the leg with his left arm, grabbing by the ankle with his right. Sasuke then tried to punch him and Kakashi used his left hand to catch at his eye, still only half open, as Sasuke then tried to kick him and Kakashi moved him to an angle where he was almost upside down but managed to block the blow. Sasuke smirked as he then quickly reached for the bell at Kakashi's waist. Kakashi's eye bolted open as he had to release Sasuke and leap back, the tip of the young boy's finger grazing the bell slightly as Kakashi frowned. It's a good thing I put my book away. This kid's amazingly skilled, I wouldn't even be able to read it if I tried. Kakashi thought to himself as Sasuke slowly got up. I'll admit it, Sasuke. You're not like the others. Kakashi said and then blinked as Sasuke started to perform several hand seals ending in a horse and tiger. Kaden, Gukakyu no Jutsu. Sasuke shouted and Kakashi inwardly cursed as a huge amount of fire came his way. As the fire soon cleared, Sasuke saw that Kakashi had somehow managed to escape and the young genin looked all around himself for the Junin. Where is he? Above. Behind me. Where'd he go? Sasuke wondered, then felt a pair of hands take hold of his legs by the ankles. Below. Kakashi called out as he then pulled Sasuke down to where only his head was left visible. Doden, Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu. Kakashi said as he came out of the ground and looked at the now glaring boy. I'll admit you aren't like the others. Although, you still have a long way to go. The older nin said with an eye smile. But then heard something that sounded like yelling and rolled his eyes. Naruto must have found the food. He thought to himself, then disappeared, leaving Sasuke in a hole. Sasuke. Naruto whispered from beside him and the said boy blinked and looked around. Where are you, Dobi? I can't see you, he stated, and with a light chuckle Naruto appeared at his side. Where'd you learn that? He demanded quickly and Naruto rolled his eyes. I'll tell you later. Now do you want to beat Kakashi-sensei? Naruto questioned and the Uchiha nodded his head. Then we're going to have to work together, Naruto said and pulled Sasuke out of the ground. The Uchiha then patted the dirt off his shoulders and frowned. Why should I work with you, or the fangirl? He asked and Naruto crossed his arms. Because I have a way to give you your strength back and lose your hunger problem, Naruto said flatly, and Sasuke growled, then mulled it over in his head. Hurry up, that damn timer could go off at any moment, Naruto stated, and Sasuke thought it over much quicker. On one hand, he could try and attack Kakashi now, but that would be bad as Kakashi obviously could take him when he's already weakened and that last jutsu nearly killed what was left of his energy. On the other hand, Naruto was showing a bit more tact than normal and said he could give him back his energy and strength. Alright, I'll bite. What the hell's your plan? Sasuke questioned and Naruto smirked. First eat this, then we find Sakura and the plan goes in order, Naruto said, handing a soldier pill to Sasuke, who popped it into his mouth and ate it. His eyes bolted open as he felt his strength return and his hunger die down. Cool, huh? I better have mine now just in case, Naruto said, eating his, and then cracked his neck with a smirk. Alright, seeing as you weren't just spouting out nonsense, I'll listen to this plan of yours, Sasuke said as Sakura came from behind a bush and grinned seeing him. However, you have to keep that away from me until we're done, Sasuke said, pointing to the pink-haired girl with a frown, and Sakura slumped. Right. Anyways, here's what I think. So Naruto wasn't here, Kakashi mused, seeing no signs of the blonde at the memorial stone where he'd left the lunch boxes. He made me come here with a clone probably, while he's had time to plot with Sakura and Sasuke by now. Clever Naruto. I might have to recommend you for Anbu if this keeps up, Kakashi thought to himself, then heard something from a nearby bush as Naruto jumped at him with the blades of his gauntlets out once more. Haven't you tried this once before? Kakashi questioned as he jumped back, evading Naruto's attack. Kaden, Gukakyu no Jutsu, came Sasuke's voice from behind him, and Kakashi's single eye opened wide. He quickly used a replacement jutsu and reappeared in a nearby tree, looking down to see that the Naruto down there disappear into a plume of smoke. He then got ready to attack Sasuke, only to yelp and grasp his arm as a blade cut him and drew blood. His eye widened once more as Naruto was beside him, some slight blood on his gauntlet's blade, and the older nin quickly jumped back away from the younger nin. At that point the alarm went off and he let out a sigh of relief. Time's up, he said, and the three genin jumped out in front of him with smirks. What's with all the smirks? None of you ever got any. Kakashi was cut off as he then saw that Sakura had the two bells and tossed one to Sasuke. The Junin blinked multiple times as he saw this and then looked to, whistling innocently. Well, that still leaves Naruto, he said, and Naruto held up a certain orange book, causing Kakashi to reach into his back pocket, and his eyes went wide in horror as he couldn't feel his precious smut. Ah, right. Well, as Kakashi tried to stay calm, Naruto pulled the pack of matches that had been with the Genjutsu scroll out of his coat pocket and waved it in front of Kakashi, who knew what that meant. This exercise is over. You all pass. That's all for today, Team 7. Your real duties shall begin tomorrow. Just please give me back my book. Kakashi said, looking pathetic, and Naruto took a thoughtful look. I don't know. What do you guys think? Naruto questioned of Sakura and Sasuke. I say burn it, Sakura stated with an evil grin on her face. Show him not to be perverted around me ever again. Inner Sakura shouted boldly, though no one heard her. Kakashi quickly shook his head no, eyes wide in horror at the thought of them burning his precious smut. Well, what do you think, Sasuke? Should we give him his book back? Naruto questioned, scratching his chin, and Sasuke med to himself with a smirk, arms crossed. Why not just burn it for the mega-ass poke he tried to use on you? Sasuke said, and Kakashi moved with godlike speed, reclaiming his precious book before they could even notice him and rubbing it to his cheek like it was the most precious thing to him in his life. The three genin looked at one another, and Sakura and Naruto burst out laughing while Sasuke simply smirked, seeing the grown man act in such a way. Kakashi blinked, seeing the three newly made genin, and I smiled at the only team to ever pass this test. They all have potential, even Sakura. She must have been hiding with the real Naruto while that clone came at me. So when I went to the nearest tree, all he had to do was distract me with one hand while he grabbed my book, and she got the bells for herself and Sasuke. Kakashi then smiled as he looked at the three genin, his first team to pass. TBC. Next time on Naruto Ultimate. Naruto. Oh man, why the hell do we have to go on a trip to Wave Country? Sasuke. Because Dobi, it'll be our first C-rank mission. Naruto. I know that, Sasuke, but I've never left Konoha before, and I don't know if there's gonna be any ramen in this land of waves place. Sasuke. You're kidding, right? Kakashi. I'd be more worried about bandits than that, Naruto. Naruto. Hey Kakashi-sensei, can my older brother Crow come? He is from Mist Village after all, so might know the terrain better than us. Kakashi. I'll think about it. Next time on Naruto Ultimate. The Land of Waves, Journey to a New Land. Naruto. I totally can't wait. Current polls. Kyuubi Gender Poll. Chapter 4. The Land of Waves, Journey to a New Land. I am too lost to be saved. N. Talking. Yo. Thinking. Stupid fox. Demon talking. Grr. Demon thinking. Stupid kit. Inner self talking. Chaa. Jutsu. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. N. Streets of Konohagakure. Naruto was walking down the streets with his arms behind his head and a thoughtful look on his face. He was heading home from his first meeting with his new team, not to mention his first mission. Painting a fucking fence. Man, why did the old man assign us such a stupid mission? Naruto wondered aloud, then stopped as he felt something dark and disturbing. Naruto turned around and saw through the crowd of civilians a single masked ninja in black. This normally wouldn't be unusual, but it was the fact that he had no headband and that no one else seemed to see him that was. He was wearing a baggy black suit, with black Anbu-type armor on him, armor on his shoulders and upper arms. His right arm was strapped to his left shoulder, Anbu shin guards were on him, with a strange device attached to his right knee, black hip and waist armor, and he had a long black scarf. The bolts in this armor were visible and were colored a rusty orange. His face was totally concealed in black leather bands with a small bit open for his right eye, hidden by shadows and an orange bolt holding the belts together. His deathly pale and scarred skin was the only other thing visible on his left hand's fingers and his toes. Naruto stared at the nin, not focusing on anything else besides the ebony nin. The nin in black seemed to stare at him, and Naruto fought to keep from running to catch him when he found someone's hands over his eyes. Hey Naruto, what are you looking at? Kasara asked from behind him, and Naruto slowly pulled her hands from over his eyes only to see that the nin was gone. Not even the slightest hint of his presence was visible to Naruto any longer, and that unnerved him greatly. Nothing, Naruto said distantly as he looked to that same spot, Kasara following his gaze but holding a question in her eyes. What had Naruto so badly scared? Later that night, Konohagakure no Sato rooftops. Crow stood on the roof of the hotel he and Naruto shared. He had his arms crossed and his eyes closed as two shadowed figures appeared behind him. The pale teen smirked as he looked at one of them from across his shoulder. What took you? I was beginning to think you were going to be as late as Kakashi. He stated factly. I am sorry, master. I should not have been late but was delayed upon seeing a cat in a tree. The other figure said, moving forward and bowing to Crow. He a mask made of leather bands that were covering his face with a small hole for his right eye and an orange bolt to hold the bands together tightly. The only visible skin he had was on his left hand's fingers and toes, both of which were pale and horribly scarred. He wore black armor on his right arm that attached it to his left shoulder, covering his hand from view, a black Anbu issue chest plate, black armor down his hips, and more Anbu issue armor on his shins, a black armored pad or maybe bracer on his right knee, black armored ninja sandals, black armor down his left shoulder and black Anbu wrist protectors on his left arm, all of the armor having orange bolts in it giving him some color. He also had on a baggy totally black suit that covered every inch of his body, and a scarf around his neck and reaching down his back. The man wasn't very tall, it would seem, however he also seemed to slouch ever so slightly, making him appear shorter than he actually was. "Never mind, Sable. What have you brought to me?" Crow questioned, and Sable simply moved his neck from side to side, relieving some tension and making a popping sound. "A mission from the land of waves shall arrive soon, master. However, it will be of much higher caliber than the client shall inform. I suggest I should accompany the team sent to protect them," Sable explained, then suggested, and Crow med moving one hand to his chin ever so slightly. "No, Sable, we will both go. I'm going to make sure that Naruto and his new team get the mission. Now who do you know will be an enemy?" Crow said, then questioned, and Sable's head twitched slightly. "One of the 7 shinobi swordsmen and the demon of the hidden mist, Zabuza Momochi, his young ward Haku, and the demon brothers, Gozu and Maizu, as well as a man named Gato and his troops of Nuke Nin and Mercs," Sable reported, and Crow smirked to himself slightly. "Well, so Momo's there, Alright, I could use him on my side. Sable, find Luna and bring her up to speed. We'll need her for this mission. Then I want you and her to stay out of sight until I need you. Stay close, but don't interfere unless it looks dire," Crow stated, and Sable nodded once, then slowly looked at him. "Master, the Uzumaki boy you have had me protect. He saw me today, felt my presence even," the black-clad nin said, and Crow's eyes widened visibly at the implications. "Are you sure, Sable?" he demanded, and his servant nodded his head once more. "Well now, so Naruto has a special bloodline after all," he said to himself, and his servant then seemed to take a confused posture that Crow immediately recognized. "Only a select few are able to see you. That armor you're wearing is more than just a simple fashion statement. The bolts in it all produce waves that dull the senses of a normal person and make it so they see you, but you don't quite register in their mind. It was one of my uncle's more brilliant ideas, I'll admit," Crow said, and Sable nodded his head once more. "Should I discontinue to follow the Uzumaki boy, master?" Sable questioned, and Crow med to himself once more, deep in thought. "No, I won't allow him to be hurt by these pathetic villagers ever again, Sable. Even if you have to follow him more discreetly, do so. Keep him in view and never forget that his life is the only thing I value in this life," Crow said, and Sable nodded to his master, then vanished into the shadows. "And I have to survive. To live the life taken from my mother. I have to survive, no matter what the cost," Crow said softly, looking up and at the full moon and stars in the sky with a hint of sadness in his 2-colored orbs. Forested area. How far away is the target?" Kakashi questioned into a headset he had on. 5 meters and closing. So, how much longer are we gonna wait?" Naruto said, then questioned, and Kakashi rolled his eyes, wondering when Naruto would finally drop the damn act. It was starting to get on his nerves. "I'm in position," came Sasuke's smooth voice, and Sakura replied much the same. "Now we meet again, my old enemy. The Hokage may have his evil paperwork to do battle with, but you and me are fiercer enemies than they ever will be." Kakashi thought to himself. "Go," he shouted as his 3 genin attacked the target, and Naruto grabbed him. "Gotcha. Me OOOW." Naruto now had hold of a large cat that seemed to suddenly like to claw at him. Sakura was giggling as she watched while Naruto was screaming about how much he hated cats. "Remember, our target has a ribbon on its right ear that says Tora. Make sure it's the right one," Kakashi called over the headphones, and Sasuke looked at the ribbon and smirked as it said Tora on it. However, he smirked cause Naruto was now holding the said cat in a headlock with a near manic look in his eyes as Sakura then lunged to save their target, thus giving the Uchiha some decent entertainment. "Target confirmed," Sasuke said, still smirking, and Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief. However, you might want to end the mission. The Dobies got the cat in a headlock, Sasuke stated, and Kakashi blinked and chuckled to himself. That seems familiar. Oh right, I tried to use a kunai to skin him. Kakashi thought to himself, then shook his head. Alright then. Operation Find Tora is accomplished, Kakashi said and looked to the sky, seeing some clouds passing by. Hopefully, Naruto won't kill the cat anytime soon. And if he does, I hope he invites me and the rest of the genin to Junin of the village. We'd all enjoy that, I'm sure. Kakashi thought to himself with a hidden smirk. Hokage's office. Oh poor Tora. Poor little kitty. I was so worried about you, I could have died. The fire daimyo's wife said while hugging the poor cat to her face, the cat looking like it would rather be killed than be in her grasp. I almost feel sorry for him. Almost, Naruto said, watching the exchange with multiple scratches on his face. With that to look forward to at home, can you really blame him for running away? Sakura wondered to herself as she watched the old lady walk out of the office, Tora trying desperately to escape his owner's grasp. Alright then, now what will Team 7's new assignment be? Sarutobi questioned to himself and started to read aloud from the list of missions. To babysit for the Council of Elders. To run errands to the neighboring village. To help dig sweet potatoes. Sarutobi smirked as he saw one of Naruto's eyes twitch and had to inwardly chuckle. Be glad Crow came to me about that Land of Waves mission. I'll just let Naruto think I'm actually going to consider sending him on one of those missions. The old Hokage thought, hiding his smirk by reaching up to take hold of his pipe. No way. No thank you. Bo-O-R-I-N-G. Naruto shouted, crossing his arms into an X. Give us something better to do, old man. Naruto shouted, pointing at the Hokage, and his teammates inwardly agreed in Sasuke's case, thought he was stupid in Sakura's, and Kakashi just wondered if it was possible he was Obito's long-lost son or something. Naruto, don't be a fool. You're only a beginner. Iruka shouted, and Sarutobi pulled his hat down to shadow his eyes. Everyone starts out doing grunt work. It's where you get experience, so you can work your way up to the bigger things. Iruka told Naruto while nearly standing when the door to the Hokage's office opened and Crow walked in reading his perverted orange book, causing all of Team 7, Kakashi included, to stare at him as he walked to stand before the Hokage. You sent for me, Lord Hokage? He asked, never looking up from his book, and the Hokage nodded his head, hiding a smile by taking a smoke from his pipe. Yes, Crow. I wanted to know if you'd be willing to use your knowledge of the Land of Water to help an escort team reach the nearby Land of Waves quickly. Sarutobi questioned, and Crow looked over his book. Who am I going with? He asked, sounding somewhat uninterested. Well, the Hokage started, and Naruto jumped forward. Let us go, old man. He stated quickly, and Crow chuckled while Iruka growled. Naruto. He growled, and Sarutobi cleared his throat. Iruka, have Team 7 completed enough D-rank missions to be able to go on AC rank? The Hokage questioned of the teacher, who blinked then nodded his head. Good. Then Team 7 shall be taking this mission. Crow Kanji shall be advisor on terrain as he's from that area. Sarutobi said, then looked to a nearby door. Your mission is to protect a certain individual. Sarutobi said, then inwardly grinned as Naruto looked excited. Who is it? Some great lord. Then daimyo. A princess. Naruto rapidly questioned, staying in his dobi mask to hopefully keep Sasuke and Sakura from realizing he was actually much stronger and smarter than he seemed. But still, I'm kinda getting sick of the acting. He thought to himself, and Sarutobi saw the look in his eyes. You'll see, Naruto. Please invite him in. Sarutobi said, and looked over to a nearby door as it then opened. At first all they could see was a man's hairy arm, a bottle of sake in hand, then it moved to show an old, slightly balding fat man with a beard and mustache, a band tied around his head. He had a black shirt, a purple sash, with tan pants, and a pair of black sandals. What's going on here? Came the man's slurred voice as he looked at Naruto and the others taking a swig of his sake. They look like a bunch of wet-nosed brats. He said and exhaled. Especially the midget. He's got the face of a complete idiot. The man said, and Naruto blinked, looking for the midget, as the man put it. It's gotta be a joke, you're all nothing but a bunch of brats. Not ninja, right? The man asked, and Naruto then frowned as he realized that with the chakra shell over him he looked shorter than Sakura and Sasuke. I'll kill him. Naruto shouted, and Kakashi held Naruto back from attacking the old drunken man. Now Naruto, no killing the man paying you to protect him. Kakashi said, and Crow nodded his head slowly before giggling pervertedly, and Kakashi looked at him. Then his book. Is that the special edition of Ika Ika Fight? Kakashi then demanded slowly, and Crow looked at him and nodded. It was instant. Kakashi was behind Crow, Naruto all but forgotten in reading along with him, a hungry look in his eye. I may not like it, but bring this book and I won't care if you can protect yourself or not, he stated, and Crow shrugged his shoulders, and the man then cleared his throat, garnering the two masked perverts' attention. Now then, I am Tazuna, a bridge builder of ultimate renown. And until I am safely back in my home country, where I'll be completing my next bridge, you'll all be expected to protect me, even at the cost of your lives. Tazuna told Kakashi and his team, Crow listening also and frowned as he knew this mission was well over AC rank. Alright then, we'll all meet by the gate tomorrow. Naruto, be sure Crow is ready, and if Crow's the one who wakes you up, reverse that. Kakashi then said and walked out of the room, leaving Team 7 to also leave while Crow remained. So then, Tazuna, you might find it interesting that Crow is native to the land of water, Sandame said, and Tazuna paled slightly. I hope there isn't anything too dangerous out there for them to handle. After all, it is only AC rank, the Hokage said, and Tazuna grinned, although Crow easily could see sweat on his brow. Of course, I wouldn't dare try and fool anyone that could kill me horribly, he said, and the Hokage smiled inwardly, knowing that the man was lying through his teeth, and badly too. Crow meanwhile rolled his eyes at the blatant lie, glad that his goggles kept the motion from being seen. Well, alright then, if that's all you needed, Hokage-sama, I need to get home to make dinner, Crow said, and walked out of the room with a frown on his masked face. Naruto may not have to show his skills during the mission, but it is almost assured with Haku and Zabuza both there. And if I show my skills, the devil of the bloody mist may return, Crow thought to himself, and subconsciously touched just under his left blood-colored eye. Flashback no jutsu. A very young Crow stood before what looked like an older version of himself with two yellow snake-like eyes and long straight hair that covered some of his face. The two were in an old lab, one that would make Victor von Frankenstein drool with envy. The tubes around the room held many things. Hell, Crow saw a woman's form floating in a nearby tube, her long hair obscuring any chance of seeing her face. Crow, however, continued to look to his uncle, who was standing before him with a dark look on his face. He was wearing a totally black, somewhat baggy outfit with a purple rope tied around his waist, a Konoha headband with a scratch through it half covered by his hair, a ring on his left-hand finger, and a pair of black shinobi sandals. But it was his eyes that were his most prominent feature, a golden yellow, with pupils like slits, the purple tribal tattoos around them adding to his already imposing image. Uncle, can you tell me why I'm different? Crow asked innocently, his two-toned eyes looking up to the tall vision of his great-uncle curiously. Orochimaru chuckled despite himself at his student's innocent request. He almost smiled. Almost. Simple, really, Ioku. Your father wanted you to be the perfect fighting machine. I took steps to ensure this, Orochimaru said, and Crow tilted his head to the side. But what steps did you take? I want to know, sensei, Crow pleaded, then said, and Orochimaru felt a cruel smile come to his lips. Very well, Ioku, look into the mirror over there, Orochimaru stated, and Crow did as told, looking to his reflection quickly. Now then, nephew, what do you see? His uncle questioned of the boy, who tilted his head slightly at the question. What he saw was an 8-year-old child staring back at him with large snake-like eyes, one different than the other, and purple tribal tattoos like Orochimaru. He saw pale skin like his uncle, and short sable black hair that framed his face and spiked backwards. I see. Me, he said, and Orochimaru chuckled despite himself. No, you see my work, nephew, Orochimaru said, and Crow looked to him confused and curious at the same time. I am the reason you're always in such pristine condition. I made that body you're in. In fact, I'm more of a father to you than that bastard who claims to have raised you. Orochimaru spat out, his face turning into a look of rage. However, the look in his rage melted as he then kneeled down to Crow, who still seemed lost and confused. Orochimaru placed his large hands on the young man's shoulders and smirked at him. Your muscles are not like a normal person's, Ioku, they're coils. Orochimaru said, and Crow looked at his arms. Coils, like a spring, no lost energy from whenever you punch, kick, or jump, you always put the full force forward without even knowing it. Orochimaru said, then touched his forehead with a finger. Your bones, twice as strong yet hollowed out to allow for less weight, they make you lighter and able to move faster, also allowing you to sustain injuries that would break any other man or child's bones to pieces. The Snake Master said to his nephew and placed a hand over his head. Your skull, thicker on the top to protect the work I have done with your mind, which is faster and able to process infinitely more data than any other member of our clan, my nephew. Orochimaru said, then pointed to his chest. Your heart and lungs, both stronger and more durable than any other human, your ribs forming an internal armor around them. He said, and Crow placed a hand to his ribs and felt the smooth surface beneath it. And last, like the serpent who sheds his skin, so shall you never have to deal with blemishes or any such thing, only the skin slithering off your body once a month. And over time, more of what I have made you into shall become apparent, my nephew. Orochimaru told him, and Crow blinked and motioned to his eyes. Then, did you make my eyes different? He asked, and Orochimaru raised a single brow into his hair. Watch. Crow said and closed his eyes, only to open them now, blaring his bloodline as Orochimaru's eyes widened and a sick grin came to his face. No, Ioku, that is your own special gift. You will have to thank your mother for it. Orochimaru told Crow, who nodded his head and smiled to his uncle. Sensei, if you're more like my father, can I call you Two-san then? He questioned, and Orochimaru blinked, genuinely surprised yet again by the boy. Maybe. But you father really wouldn't like that, Ioku. Sensei is fine for now. Orochimaru told the boy, who pouted. Aren't you disgusted with me for what I have done to you? Orochimaru asked, genuinely intrigued, and Crow shrugged his shoulders. Why would I be? You've made me stronger, looked out for me since I was little, taught me how to fight, and protected me from my dad and those bloodline haters. Why in hell would I hate you, Sensei? Crow asked, and Orochimaru looked at him for a long while, amazed by the child before him, a child born of his own family. One that shared a link to him by blood rather than ambition. Flashback no jutsu, Kai. Crow shot up from his bed, sweat on his body before he laid back down and placed a hand on his head. What an idiot I was. He mumbled to himself and looked at a nearby clock, groaning when he saw how early it still was. Damn it, I can't keep doing this to myself if I ever want to find him. To repay him for that day. For what he did to me in the end. To kill the memory of it, the devil of the hidden mist. Crow said to himself darkly, an angry frown on his face. He then got up and walked to a window and opened it to let in some cool air, the young teen sighing in content as the cold wind blew into his face. Master, came a questioning tone from Sable, who appeared behind Crow, who blinked and then frowned. Don't you ever knock? He asked, and Sable then walked to the door and comically knocked on it, making Crow frown once more. Ha ha, Crow said, and could just hear a slight chuckle in Sable's throat. Now why are you here, Sable? Crow ordered, more than questioned, and Sable straightened ever so slightly before him. I have found Luna, we shall meet you in the land of waves, master. Until then please be careful. Sable said, then vanished, and Crow sighed. He wondered why his father would do that to Sable and Luna, bring them back to life only to turn them into his slaves. I guess it runs in the family. Crow muttered bitterly and turned back to his bed and slumped down into it, closing his eyes and trying to find even a fitful amount of sleep. Morning, village gates. All right, road trip. Naruto shouted as he and Crow reached the gate, both having backpack on like the others who were waiting for them. The only other difference with Crow today was that he was now wearing his slashed mist headband rather than his mother's Hibungaker headband. Kakashi was amazingly on time today, so Naruto wondered if he was only late when it would get a rise out of Sakura or something. Yet Naruto froze as he felt the black-clad ninja's presence, only for it to vanish once more. Man, that's creepy. I've faced Crow in battle and it doesn't freak me out this bad. Naruto thought with a gulp as he then started to look around, acting like he was really excited. This will be my first time outside of the village, he said happily, and Sasuke rolled his eyes. I wonder if they'll have ramen in the land of waves. Naruto questioned, and Crow nearly bust out laughing as Sakura looked at him incredulously. You're kidding, right? She asked, and Naruto blinked. No. Why? He questioned, and Kakashi was becoming more and more aware that Naruto's personality was nothing more than a facade. A good one, but a facade nonetheless. Because Naruto, we should probably be wondering if any bandits try and jump us, not what our next meal will be. Kakashi stated and Naruto shrugged his shoulders. Am I really expected to put my life on the shoulders of this kid? Tazuna asked looking to Kakashi with a hat on his head to keep the sun out of his eyes and off his head. Don't worry, I'm an elite Junin. Kakashi said and Naruto growled glaring at Tazuna while Crow finally put his book away and lifted his goggles up to wipe away some dust. We need to move, distractions at this point will only serve to hinder your ability to protect myself and Tazuna. And while I can and will fight if I feel I or Naruto are threatened, do not hesitate to protect Tazuna. Crow said, making it sound like he was more important than Tazuna, who glared at him, and Naruto snickered. Anyways, it is time to go, so come on. Kakashi said and Naruto shrugged and walked in front of them all and Crow sighed before following him, and Sasuke med something feeling strange in the air for the Uchiha. As the group walked, Sakura asked Tazuna if his country had a ninja village like Konoha. Kakashi then explained that it didn't and only a few countries actually had one. Crow and Naruto both tuned him out and Crow sniffed the air and inwardly groaned as he smelled the familiar, if not somewhat different, scent of Gozu and Maizu, the demon brothers and some of Zabuza Momochi's henchmen. Kakashi however noticed a nearby puddle but kept quiet about the fact it hadn't rained for weeks, already aware of the trap. Naruto also noticed however and was looking to Crow, who sighed and cracked his knuckles. You know what, Odoto? I really hate it when mist ninja hide like cowards. He then said and everyone stopped. Why's that, Ni-san? Naruto asked as Crow then lifted his goggles to rest on his forehead protector and turned towards the puddle. Because it always makes me itch, he said, and before he could say any more, two forms jumped out of the water, one flinging the other towards Kakashi while Crow lazily closed his eyes and made a single hand seal. The two nin then ripped Kakashi apart and went after Crow only for him to open his eyes. Blood cross eye, second release, deconstruction, he said darkly, his arms both surrounded by red chakra as the two flung their chained weapons at him. Crow lazily lifted his arms however, grasping the chains, and they instantly disintegrated into dust. Both the demon brothers' eyes shot wide open at the sight as Naruto and Sasuke then attacked. Sasuke quickly flung a couple of shuriken at the two, scattering them as the one in the cloak was grabbed by Crow, one glowing hand at his throat. I'd seriously suggest not moving unless you want to be a stain, Crow said darkly, and the man's eyes widened in fear of ending up like his chain. The other brother was having to deal with Naruto, who used the headhunter jutsu and pulled him underground only for him to vanish, having been a log. Crow blinked then jumped with the cloaked brother still in hand over an attack from behind by the brother with the two-horned forehead protector. Nah, Crow said, moving one finger back and forth while it continued to glow with a crimson power. It's not nice to attack someone from behind, Maizu, Crow said darkly, and Maizu's eyes widened as the boy seemed to know him and he only just noticed the slashed mist village forehead protector. Before Maizu could do anything, Kakashi came and knocked the mist nin out, leaving Crow to do likewise with Gozu. Well, Crow, you certainly managed to scare those two. Almost like they knew who you were, Kakashi said suspiciously, and Crow shrugged and walked off, pulling his goggles back down over his eyes and walked back down the path to go over to Naruto, leaving the silver-haired Junin to interrogate the two and maybe learn something about Crow. Ni-san, what are you doing? Naruto questioned of his brother, who grinned evilly. I haven't had a good fight in nearly 7 years, Naruto. Sparring with you kids only gets me so much excitement after all. Quote. Crow said and chuckled darkly, making even Naruto shiver. I've missed the thrill of a good fight is all, Crow said, shaking and walking to stand in the shade, his heart pounding and instincts going nuts. Hinata, I'm starting to think you're right. Crow really has problems, Naruto thought to himself while looking at his brother, who then shook his head and pulled out his orange book. I miss Psycho Crow already, Naruto thought, lamenting the loss of the cool serious Crow as he returned to his perverted ways. Mr. Tazuna, Kakashi suddenly said after tying up Gozu and Maizu to a tree, not seeing them both glancing at Crow fearfully. What is it? Tazuna asked nervously as Kakashi looked at him calmly. Our attackers appear to be Chunin-level ninja of Kurigakure. They are shinobi renowned for their willingness to fight on until their goal is achieved, even at the cost of their own lives, Kakashi explained, and Tazuna gulped audibly. Obviously, these two were watching and waiting for us. The question, Mr. Tazuna, is why would they attack us when there is no one here they would be interested in attacking? Kakashi said with his eyes narrowed onto Tazuna. After all, there has been no word of enemy shinobi seeking to take your life. The mission you gave us was to escort you home and protect you from bandits. Kakashi said, Tazuna looking pale as the ninja stared at him with his one black eye. It is quite clear what is happening here, Kakashi-san. Came Crow's voice, and the Junin looked to the young teen who was putting his book up at the moment. Even if I rarely leave your village, I am not technically a member of the Hidden Leaf or any other, ninja or otherwise. Thus I can leave Konoha as much as I want and I'm classified as a wanderer. So I know a lot about these types of situations really. Crow stated, turning with his arms crossed over his chest. Tazuna is from the land of waves, and from my personal experience that is a small fishing and trade village on the outskirts of the land of water. Recently it was completely taken over by a ruthless tyrant, a man named Gato. Crow stated, and Kakashi raised a brow. You mean Gato? As in Gato shipping and transport? The Gato. They say he's the richest man in the world. Kakashi said with one wide eye as Tazuna looked to the ground. Yes, the same. He's not as clean as most would think, however. Gato is a ruthless man, Kakashi. He will stoop to any low he can to get what he wants. He's already hired numerous teams of ninja and uses them to take over villages. He buys out the companies, then the feudal lords, and soon he's running entire countries. Crow said, and then took a thoughtful look, walking over to Tazuna while he did. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Tazuna, 1 year ago he took over your land of waves. But with you building a bridge to the mainland, he began to get nervous. He doesn't want any of you to have ways to transport your own goods to make money that he can't call his own. Am I right? Crow questioned, looking at Tazuna, who nodded his head mutely. I see. And is the architect of the bridge and overseer of its construction. You, Mr. Tazuna, are very much in his way. Sakura deduced a hand on her chin, and Sasuke then decided to point out the obvious. That means those ninja who attacked were after Tazuna, and were working for Gato. Naruto outwardly seemed a little lost, but inside his mind's gears were turning around, trying to see what was really going on. He figured the Gato connection pretty quickly in his brother's little explanation, but how his brother could know all that was a little unnerving. Crow said he wasn't a part of the village, and that was true. He never registered, so he didn't need permission to leave so long as he didn't know any village secrets. Being a civilian meant he had no access to those secrets without foul play, and seeing as he never went after said secrets, that meant that Crow could leave as much as he wanted. However, Crow had never left Konoha in all the years he stayed with Naruto. Which meant that Crow had some kind of spy outside of Konoha who was watching the other ninja villages and their activity somehow. Naruto really wanted to know how Crow was able to do that, but would ask later when they were in private. But if you knew you'd be the target of a ruthless thug with ninja at his disposal, Tazuna, why didn't you tell us when you asked for our help? Kakashi questioned of the older man, who sighed. The land of waves isn't really a prosperous country. Even our local lords are poor. And I have no money at all. An elite B-ranked bodyguard would be too much for me to afford. The old man explained, looking down at the ground as he did, his hat covering his eyes. But if you all turn away from me now, then I'm as good as dead. Kakashi listened to him, and Crow snickered to the side as he could already feel it coming. Guilt trip time, he thought to himself with an evil smirk on his face beneath the mask he wore. But Tazuna said, then looked up, grinning widely. But oh well, that's not your concern. You won't be there to see my daughter and 10-year-old grandson cry all day like their hearts are breaking. Tazuna said loudly, and Crow was tearing in the eye, trying to hold back laughter as he watched the odd looks on all of Team 7's faces. Oh, and you won't mind if my daughter vows eternal hatred of all the ninjas of your village as she lives her life alone? Hell, well, it's not your fault. Tazuna said, and Crow couldn't take any more as he fell down laughing like a maniac, holding his sides from the pain. Oh God. Ha ha ha. Stop. Just stop. Ha 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 ha. You're killing me, please stop. Crow tried to form a coherent sentence, but instead fell into a bout of uncontrollable laughter at the way Tazuna piled on the guilt. What is with this kid? Tazuna wondered, looking at the masked boy. Ah, how is that funny? I feel bad. Naruto wondered to himself. What the hell does Ino see in this guy? Sakura wondered to herself as Crow was still laughing up a storm. I'll never understand this guy. Might as well not even try to. Sasuke thought to himself and promptly ignored Crow completely. Ah, a true master at the ancient art of making a sob story. Crow thought to himself, still holding his ribs from the fit of laughter he couldn't seem to get over. Right, well, we might as well continue to protect you. At least until you reach your village. Kakashi said, and Tazuna inwardly grinned. Gotcha. Tazuna thought to himself as Crow was trying and failing miserably to manage to get back to his feet. Naruto, however, simply walked over to his brother and offered him a hand. The masked boy took the offered hand and helped getting back to his feet, and still laughing as they walked past Tazuna, Naruto shaking his head as he looked at his estranged brother. Nisan's sense of humor really needs some work. He thought to himself as he heard his team walking back on the trail in their mission. As they finally reached the outskirts of the Land of Waves, Naruto returned to acting like a doby. Crow was reading his book with Kakashi and Tazuna looking over his shoulders. After all, they wanted to see the extended scenes. As they walked, Naruto looked around, then grinned and tossed a shuriken into the brush while shouting. Over there. Everyone looked at Naruto strangely as a hushed silence overtook them. Guess it was only a mouse, he said while trying to look cool, and Sakura growled, glaring at the blonde. What mouse? Are you out of your mind? There was nothing there, you moron. Sakura shouted at the blonde, who cleaned out one ear, almost positive that she busted his eardrum. Please don't play around with your shuriken. They can be just a teensy bit dangerous. Kakashi pleaded to Naruto, wondering why he was overacting with the doby thing so much. Hey, Midget, don't go scaring us. Stop messing with our heads. Tazuna shouted, and only Sasuke and Crow seemed to be unaffected by the outburst, save the fact Sasuke looked more annoyed than usual. Naruto didn't seem to be listening, however, as he looked from side to side quickly. HMF. I think I might have seen someone, he stated, and both Kakashi and Crow heard a rustling nearby. This time over there, Naruto shouted, tossing another shuriken, but had a real target this time. Sakura immediately ran over and punched Naruto in the face, Crow wincing as she did. I told you to quit it, she shouted, and Naruto fell to the ground, rubbing his throbbing jaw. He then got up and rubbed the back of his head as she glared at him with an utter loathing. Sheesh, can't she take a break from hitting me for one day? I mean, if this keeps up, I'm gonna think she's a sadist or something. Naruto thought to himself as he then said to her. I swear, there was someone in there after us. Sakura growled and then told Naruto, still using her Banshee Scream no Jutsu. You're such a liar. Meanwhile, Kakashi was moving over to where Naruto threw the shuriken, Crow behind him. As soon as Crow saw the now flinching White Rabbit, his eyes widened and he put his book up. Naruto, now look what you've done. Sakura shouted, seeing the rabbit, and Crow wondered when she got there. It was an accident. Snap out of it, bunny. Please, Naruto said when he saw the rabbit and took the shuriken back, also trying to make the rabbit stop shaking and look like it had just died when he barely grazed its head. It's just a rabbit, Tazuna said to the young nin while Crow reached into one of the pockets inside his vest and pulled out a scroll. A snow hare. I only know one reason one of those would be in this area of water country. Only one nin I know of has a thing for snow hares. Haku. And where Haku is, Zabuza is not far behind. Just as Crow finished his internal monologue, a large spinning weapon came at them, and Kakashi quickly ordered his team to take cover. They did so, with Sakura jumping on Naruto to get him down, and Crow only crouched, the bladed weapon only taking a small portion of his hair off. The bladed weapon lodged itself into a nearby tree, nearly cutting the tree in half as a man appeared standing on the handle of the weapon. Well, what do we have here? The man questioned with a deep voice. He was a tall man, and muscular, with a black leather strap around his upper body in a Y shape, striped pants, cow skin arm and leg warmers, black shinobi sandals, bandages around his face, his Hitai tilted to the side slightly, and black hair. The man appeared to not have eyebrows and was looking over his shoulder, directly as Kakashi and Crow. Hey Zabuza, long time no see. Crow said coldly while removing his goggles. He then looked to Naruto, who raised a brow. Hold these for me, Ototo, he stated, simply tossing the black-orange tinted goggles to Naruto, who blinked as Crow then walked forward towards Zabuza. The man himself chuckled darkly as he saw the boy and then looked at Kakashi, who was frowning under his mask. You know him, Crow? Kakashi questioned of the masked boy, but it was Zabuza who answered. No, Kakashi Hatake, the question is, do you know who that is you've got with you? Zabuza stated, and Kakashi raised a brow as the mist nin then laughed to himself. Ioku, what the hell are you doing with these leaf idiots? As a member of the 7 shinobi swordsmen you could have come to me for aid. Zabuza said, and Kakashi's eyes shot wide open as he then looked to Crow, who sighed. First off, Momo, I never quite made it to shinobi swordsman if I never was a shinobi. Crow said flatly as Zabuza growled. I thought I told you, and your goddamned whore of a sister, not to call me that anymore. Zabuza screamed angrily at Crow, who shrugged his shoulders dismissively, totally ignoring the outburst from the larger nin. Second, I'm not a tool, last guy who tried to make me into one, lost his life as you know. Third, there were only 7 shinobi swordsmen, I would have been 8 eyebrowless nitwit. Crow stated, and Zabuza frowned under the bandages on his face. Lastly, Zabuza Momochi, demon of the hidden mist. Is that you should know, that you don't fight or pick on the devil of the hidden mist, without having a death wish in mind. Crow said lowly as he unraveled his scroll and used his claws to prick his thumb, smearing the blood along the kanji of the scroll, and instantly 2 sheaths with blades appeared from it, and Zabuza's eyes widened. The first blade was of normal length, being only about 3 foot, but was at least a foot thick. The blade was also serrated in black with a blue tint to the edge and the designs along the blade that resembles ice. The handle appeared to be made of bone and was white with black leather around the handle. The hilt curved over one side and spiked into an ice-like shape on the other. A blue strip of cloth was tied to the end of the handle, making it look like it had a pair of tails. The second blade was at least 4 feet long, with a red blade, the edge of it being white. The hilt was golden and shaped like a pair of phoenix wings, a red cat's eye jewel in between them. The handle was wrapped with blood-red leather. At the bottom of the blade a long whip-like extension was tipped off with a small dagger-like extension. The 2 swords were sheathed in leather, allowing their blades to be seen but stay securely to the leather straps holding them. Crow then threw off his backpack, it landing with a thud to the side, and pulled the swords on, clasping them together at his chest. Hold on, Crow, I'll handle this. You help Naruto and the others protect the old man. Kakashi stated, holding an arm in front of Crow, whose eye flinched, but he nodded his head anyway. I know you probably have a better idea of how Zabuza fights, you might even have the skill to fight him toe to toe, but you're under my protection at the moment. I'll handle Zabuza, Kakashi told him, and Crow turned his back to Kakashi, and Sakura gasped, seeing the look in his eyes. The look was that of a cold-blooded killer. They held no compassion or warmth at all. In fact, Sakura could swear she saw her own death while looking in the eyes of Crow. No, now Kakashi. Should you fail to defeat Zabuza in at the least 15 minutes. I will not be able to control myself any longer. It's been too long since I last had a decent challenge of my skill with a blade. With that, Crow walked back towards Tazuna, kicking his bag back up before catching it as Sasuke felt the fear that Sakura was already experiencing. What is with this guy? One minute I see a moron, the next I'm fearing for my life with just a look from him. What kind of power does that? And where did he get it? Sasuke wondered as Crow passed him and stood next to Naruto, who looked at his brother from the side to see his eyes and flinched. Yep, Ni-san has the same evil eye trick as Orochimaru, that's for sure. He thought to himself with a shiver, and then turned back to watch as Zabuza looked at Kakashi, a slight annoyance on the other nin's face. That wasn't very wise, Kakashi. No one orders around the devil of the hidden mist. Haha, at least not for long, that is. And you're going to find out why soon enough. Zabuza stated, and then watched as Kakashi lifted up his left hand to his hit. Well then, I'd best beat you quickly then. And if that's the case, I should fight you. Like this, Kakashi said coldly, and Zabuza smirked under the bandages of his mouth. Ah, so your name's Kakashi. Kakashi of the Sharingan, I presume. Zabuza questioned, looking at the one-eyed Junin before a crazy look entered his eye. If it wouldn't be too much trouble, could you hand over the old man? Zabuza questioned, not even caring to look at the confused and shocked expressions on all but Crow and Naruto's faces. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, assume the Manji formation. Protect Mr. Tazuna, Kakashi said while slowly lifting the hit away from his left eye. That's the kind of teamwork that this situation demands. Even if Crow at some point intervenes, stay away. Kakashi ordered to his team as he pulled the Hittite up to his forehead to reveal a red eye with 3 comma marks in a circle, a scar running up and down the skin of his eye. Now then Zabuza, shall we? Kakashi questioned and Zabuza chuckled to himself. Ah, to face the legendary Sharingan I so early on in our first meeting. This is an honor, Zabuza said and Sakura looked lost. What's a Sharingan? She wondered and Sasuke answered for her. Shinobi who have the Sharingan eye have mastered a form of jutsu for the eye, a dujutsu. It enables them to see through any illusion or spell, and reflect the illusion or spell back at the original caster. Sasuke said then narrowed his eyes on Kakashi. And, there's more, he stated and Sakura blinked. Like what? She asked him and instead Zabuza answered for the Uchiha boy. Exactly, there is indeed more. He said then chuckled slightly. The Sharingan's most formidable power is not to reflect illusions, but to acutely analyze and then copy another's jutsu. Zabuza said and then looked at Kakashi. When I was in the Kurigakure Assassin's Corps, I posed the usual bingo book, a kind of who's who of our enemies. It had quite the extensive write-up on you. Zabuza said while crouching down slightly placing a hand on one knee and the other hand on his sword's handle. The man who penetrated and copied over 1,000 jutsu. Kakashi Hatake, the mirror ninja. Zabuza said darkly as he and Kakashi both glared at one another. But, he's just Master Kakashi. He and old man Hokage are just. Sakura thought to herself then inner Sakura exclaimed loudly. Cha, are they really that amazing? Sakura for once agreed with her inner self's inquiry as Sasuke simply looked at Kakashi strangely from the side. But, does it mean? Sasuke's features then hardened as he fixed his coal-black eyes directly on Kakashi. The Sharingan eye is supposed to be unique to only a small number of the Uchiha clan. Could he be? Sasuke wondered to himself but Zabuza interrupted his thoughts. Enough. Pleasant as this conversation has been. The time for talk is over. I'm on a very tight schedule to polish off the old man. Zabuza said and Team 7 surrounded Tazuna taking out a kunai each, Crow not even budging an inch from his spot with his back to Kakashi and Zabuza. But Kakashi, it looks like I'll have to kill you first. Zabuza stated darkly before kicking off the side of the tree with his Zanbato and vanishing into thin air. Zabuza then reappeared with one hand in the air and one in front of him, and seemingly standing on water. Over there, Naruto shouted after spotting the hidden mist missing Nin. Is he walking on water? Demanded a shocked Sakura as Kakashi narrowed his eyes. Clever bastard, he's built up a pretty fair concentration of chakra. Kakashi thought to himself. Now then, we begin. Kurigakure no Jutsu. Zabuza said darkly while vanishing into a thick mist that appeared from behind him. He's gone, exclaimed the pink-haired Kunoichi stating the obvious to the others once more as a thick fog rolled in covering them all and Crow chuckled to himself as it did. Kakashi probably thinks Zabuza will go after him first. No, he already knows you think that Kakashi. In order to fight an enemy like Zabuza you can't think like you normally would. He gets inside another person's head by analyzing the situation at hand and doing the opposite of what you'd expect. Crow thought to himself as Zabuza's voice came from the mists. There are 8 targets, he said darkly yet invisible to the Nin. Wah, what was that? Sakura asked looking around for the mist Nin hiding in the shadows, or in this case mist. Throat, spinal column, lungs, liver, the jugular vein, the subclavian artery, kidney, heart. Zabuza called out from the mists as Naruto looked around himself. This is an old tactic that Crow said most mist assassins used. They would fool others into making a move or to kill themselves by scaring them. This guy's pretty good I'll admit but nothing like Crow when he wants to be really scary. Naruto's thoughts ended as Zabuza spoke once more. So many choices what vital, vulnerable place shall I choose? With that a massive bloodlust and killing intent rolled over the area and the genin minus Naruto all froze up. Zabuza just unleashed some massive ki. Fortunately for me, Crows unleashed more than this over a dozen times so I, Ino, and Hinata could get used to it. Naruto thought with a small smirk then saw Sasuke looking more than just a little frightened at the moment. This terrible bloodthirst. If I draw his attention by even blinking, he'll kill me. I can feel it. I can't stay like this for long. Or I'm sure I'll go insane. Sasuke thought to himself, sweating profusely and shaking like a leaf. A master ninja, determined to make a kill. Knowing my life is in his hands. I hate it. You start wanting to die just to end the suspense. Sasuke thought to himself, eyes wide and tightening his grip on the kunai he had in hand. Sasuke. Kakashi said forcefully, snapping Sasuke out of his thoughts. Calm down. Even if he gets me, I'll still protect you. Kakashi said to the wide-eyed Uchiha boy and his teammates. I will never let my comrades die, he stated with his eyes forming upside-down U's. Sasuke visibly relaxed at that and Sakura blushed slightly. I wouldn't bet on that, came Zabuza's voice from the dark as he appeared in between Team 7 and Tazuna. Game over. Zabuza growled and swung his massive Zanbato, Kakashi moving at lightning-fast speeds to stop the blade and stab Zabuza in the ribs, the others all being knocked away. Zabuza questioned as Team 7 and Tazuna all looked at the bleeding Zabuza, only for another one to appear behind Kakashi. Look out, sensei. Behind you. Naruto shouted and Kakashi's eyes widened as the large Zanbato was swung at him, seeming to slice him in half, making Sakura scream. However, it turned into water at the last second and Zabuza's eyes widened. A water clone. He was able to copy me in this mist, were Zabuza's thought, and if anyone would have looked at Crow, they would see that his eyes were also wide and looking over his shoulder to the fight. Incredible. He managed to copy Momo, and in this thick mist no less. Simply amazing, Kakashi. You do your name proud. Crow thought to himself as Kakashi appeared behind Zabuza with a kunai to the mist nin's neck. Don't move. Game over, Kakashi stated with a cool tone. Awesome, Naruto exclaimed as Sakura nodded quickly. Sasuke begrudgingly agreeing, however not voicing this opinion to anyone present. Haha. Not bad, Zabuza said in a low tone. But we're not through yet, he stated, and Kakashi's eyes widened. It will take more to defeat me than you mimicking me like an ape. A lot more, came the factly statement to Kakashi. Haha. But you are good. In the short time it took you to calm that kid down. You duplicated my Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu, Zabuza said while looking at Kakashi out of the corner of his eye. And by making that clone say something you normally would, you ensured my focus would be solely on it. While you yourself used the hidden mist jutsu to hide and watch my every move. Kakashi was silent as Zabuza spoke. Too bad for you, Zabuza said, and somehow a second one appeared behind the Junin. I am not that easy to fool. With that, the Zabuza in front of Kakashi turned to water, leaving him open to attack. Zabuza was a water clone too? Naruto questioned, amazed as Kakashi quickly looked behind himself. Zabuza swung his Zanbato, but Kakashi ducked low to the ground, evading the attack and saving his head. Zabuza then went with his movement and his massive blade dug into the ground. He released it while placing one hand on the bottom of the handle. He then used his momentum to spin around and kick Kakashi, sending him flying. And now, Zabuza said, quickly taking hold of his Zanbato only to skid to a stop when he saw some caltrops before him. Foolishness, Zabuza growled, teleporting to the water where Kakashi landed. Sensei, Naruto shouted as he saw him land underwater. Did Master Kakashi really get kicked that far? Sakura wondered to herself as Sasuke inwardly frowned. This guy's physical techniques are fantastic. With that thought, Sasuke heard something and looked out of the corner of his eye to see silver chakra swirling around Crow, who was shaking. Wow, what the hell? Visible chakra. What's going on? Who is this guy anyway? And how did he get so much power? Sasuke wondered angrily to himself as Crow then chuckled darkly. This water, why is it so heavy? Kakashi questioned in his own mind as Zabuza appeared behind him, performing several hand seals. Gullible fool, he said as Kakashi's eyes widened. Suoro no Jutsu. Damn, he thought to himself, turning a wide eye to see Zabuza put his hand in the water, capturing the Junin. I thought I could go underwater and regroup. It was a tactical error, Kakashi thought to himself as Zabuza chuckled darkly. Ha, this water prison jutsu is inescapable. You're trapped, Kakashi, Zabuza said darkly before making a one-handed seal. You running around makes it too hard for me to do my job. I'll finish you after I get rid of the others. Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu, Zabuza said while creating yet another water clone, Kakashi's eyes nearly bugging out of their sockets. Too bad Kakashi. Looks like I get to have my fun after all. Crow thought to himself as he then turned and watched as Zabuza then looked at him. Time's up Kakashi. Crow said, and the silver-haired Junin's eyes widened seeing the raw silver chakra swirling around his body. Now it's my turn to have some fun with ol Momo. Crow stated while unsheathing the large black sword from his back and having it lay against his shoulders. Tora will be enough to beat you, I need not bloody Suzaku's blade any more than it already has been. Zabuza seethed as he heard the earlier crack and then chuckled when Crow crouched slightly 1 foot in front of the other. So then, you're really going to fight me? I'm honored that the heir to the Onizuka clan's legacy is challenging me really. Zabuza said, and everyone looked at Crow in confusion from the name. Oh, he didn't tell you, did he? Zabuza stated and then laughed loudly. He didn't tell you how he's from one of the most powerful of all the clans in Kiri, the Onizuka? Or, did he tell you, how he carved a bloody pathway of destruction through the Mist Village, killing at the least 6 Anbu when he escaped from there at the tender age of 8? Zabuza continued to question while Crow's body shivered in rage as the memories of his past resurfaced. Naruto looked at his brother and slowly backed away, a look of total fear on his face. Sasuke and Sakura saw then and did likewise, finding it would be better not to be near the masked teen when he finally exploded on Zabuza. Momo, you're going to wish you hadn't done that. Crow growled, looking at Zabuza with furious eyes as he placed his sword into the ground before him to free his hands. The two looked at one another for a time until Crow then made a few hand seals before he then closed his eyes. A silence seemed to hover around the area as then the silver chakra around Crow turned pitch black. Now let me show you why. Awakening of Madness Jutsu. Crow said to the Mist Nin darkly, his eyes slowly opening. Only the whites of his eyes were black now, the pupils white slits, his right eye was violet, his left eye an icy blue. TBC. AN, could someone translate, Blood Cross Eye, Devil of the Hidden Mist, and, Awakening of Madness Jutsu, for me? Next time on Naruto Ultimate. Naruto. Crow's past is finally reveled. Crow. So what, Naruto? Kakashi. I can't believe the things you've done. Zabuza. Especially calling me Momo. Kakashi. Actually, that seems normal for him. Next time on Naruto Ultimate. The past of Ioku Onizuka. Devil of the Hidden Mist reveled. Crow's inner madness unleashed. Current polls. Kyuubi gender poll.